The silence in the small town of Black Hollow was always louder at night. It wasn't the kind of silence that brought peace. It was the kind that made the hairs on your neck stand up. The kind that made you question if you were really alone. On the edge of this forgotten town stood a crumbling mental asylum, long abandoned, hidden behind a wall of dead trees and rusted iron gates. For years, the locals whispered about the place, about the experiments, the screams that echoed through its halls, and the one patient who never left. No one dared to speak his name, but they all knew the stories. He was the reason the asylum shut down. He was the reason the town still trembled after dark. Some called him a monster. Others called him cursed. But the few who survived called him one thing: the psycho. Years had passed, and Black Hollow tried to forget. But evil never forgets. And on a cold October evening it came back. Catherine Winters was a curious soul, a freelance documentarian who hunted down forgotten places and stories for her underground horror channel. She had traveled to remote villages, stayed in cursed houses, and even spent a night in a crypt in Romania. But nothing intrigued her like the asylum in Black Hollow. When she arrived in the town, the locals were colder than the weather. They didn't want to talk. A wrinkled old man at the diner stared at her camera and muttered, "You shouldn't have come. He doesn't like visitors." She thought it was just small-town superstition. That would be her first mistake. That night, with only a flashlight, her camera gear, and a backpack, Catherine pushed open the rusted gate of the asylum. The metal groaned like it hadn't been touched in decades. Vines had grown over the crumbling stone, windows were shattered, and the door creaked as if warning her to turn back. But Catherine had filmed in worse places. She stepped inside. The air was thick with mold and rot. Water dripped from the ceiling, forming dirty puddles on the cracked tiles. Her flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in peeling paint and broken wheelchairs tipped over in the halls. As she explored, her camera recorded everything. She spoke softly into her mic. "This is Catherine Winters, inside the infamous Black Hollow Asylum. It's been abandoned for over 40 years. Rumors say one patient never left. Tonight, I'll find out the truth." A gust of wind slammed a door shut somewhere in the building. She jumped but laughed it off. "Nice try, ghost boy." But her voice trembled just slightly. In the old record room, she found a rusted filing cabinet, barely standing. She pried it open and pulled out a dusty file labeled Patient 101. Inside was a single black and white photo of a young man with hollow eyes and a stitched smile. Below it was a name, scribbled out in red ink. The only legible word: unfit for society. Catherine held the photo up to the camera. This must be him, the infamous patient. No name, just a number. Suddenly, the camera's screen flickered. The battery had been full just minutes ago. Catherine frowned, tapping the lens, but the feed turned to static for a moment before coming back. The flashlight dimmed too. The air grew colder. Then she heard it. A step. Not hers. Not echo. They were heavy, slow, deliberate. And they were coming from down the hallway. She froze. "Hello," she called out, hoping it was just her mind playing tricks. But the footsteps didn't stop. They grew louder, closer. She backed into a corner, holding her flashlight like a weapon. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Silence. Her breath caught in her throat. Bang. The door slammed open, but no one was there. Her heart pounded as she slowly stepped into the hallway. Nothing but darkness ahead. The hallway stretched on forever, shadows dancing on the walls. She turned back to the record room, but the door had vanished. Confused, she spun around. "No, that's not possible," she whispered. The asylum had shifted. The layout had changed. Now, every hallway looked the same, endless, decaying and wrong. She began to walk, the flashlight barely holding on, the camera still rolling. She had been in haunted places before. But this felt different. This place wasn't just haunted, it was alive. She found a stairwell leading to the basement. The walls here were covered in deep scratches, as if someone or something had been trying to claw their way out. Or in. The further she went, the colder it got. She could see her breath now. Her hands trembled as she opened the door to the basement. Inside, there was a flickering red light, casting long shadows across the room. In the center stood a single hospital bed, surrounded by rusted restraints. Chains hung from the ceiling, and bloodstains, old, dried, and brown, covered the floor. Beside the bed was a mirror, cracked in the center, reflecting not her image but something else. She stepped closer, eyes widening. The mirror showed a figure standing behind her. But when she turned around, there was no one. Heart racing, she grabbed the camera and began to speak again. "This is insane. There's something wrong with this place. I think the stories were true." Suddenly the red light went out. Pitch black. Her flashlight died too. Then came the laughter. Low, twisted, childlike. And close. She scrambled to pull out her backup flashlight. Clicked on weakly. And in the beam of light, at the far corner of the room, something moved. A tall, thin figure, its head tilted unnaturally to one side, stepped into view. Its face was obscured by shadows, but she could see the glint of something metallic in its hand. A scalpel. Catherine backed away, hands shaking. "I'm not here to hurt you," she whispered. The figure took a step forward. The scalpel dragged across the wall, leaving a line in the rust. Then it spoke. "You found me." Its voice was raspy, broken, but strangely calm. "You wanted to see the psycho, didn't you?" Catherine turned and ran. She didn't look back. She couldn't. She sprinted through the twisted corridors, past locked doors and shattered windows, trying to find the exit. But every door led to another hallway. Another dead end. The asylum had become a maze. It didn't want her to leave. She finally found a staircase and climbed, breath ragged, legs trembling. She burst through a door and found herself in the old children's wing. The walls were painted with faded murals of smiling suns and animals with missing eyes. In the center of the room was a child's drawing, fresh, pinned to the wall with a rusted nail. It showed a stick figure girl with a camera, standing next to a tall, dark figure. Below it, in shaky handwriting, "We're friends now." Suddenly the laughter returned, closer, louder, echoing all around. Then a voice, directly in her ear. "Don't leave me," Catherine screamed. She dropped the camera and ran. Ran until she found a window low enough to break. She threw her backpack through it, then dove after it, glass tearing at her jacket and skin. She hit the cold ground outside, rolled and scrambled to her feet. The gate was still open. She didn't look back. She just ran into the night, breath visible in the moonlight, heart pounding like a drum. She didn't stop until she reached her car. She slammed the door, locked it, and sat trembling behind the wheel. She dared to glance back at the asylum. In one of the broken windows on the third floor, a silhouette stood watching her, holding her camera, and smiling. The camera was gone. The footage she'd captured, evidence of the nightmare, was in the hands of the psycho. Catherine sat behind the wheel, shaking, staring at the window where he stood. Her instincts screamed at her to drive. But something deeper, something stubborn and unrelenting, whispered, "You can't leave yet." Not without the truth. She started the engine. The rumble of the car felt grounding, safe, like a lifeline to reality. But as the headlights illuminated the twisted path back through the woods, her mind raced. He had taken her camera. That meant he wanted her to come back. Why? Catherine didn't sleep that night. She parked at a nearby motel, locked the door, and sat against it until morning. Every creak in the building made her flinch. Every shadow twisted into a tall, thin figure in her mind. The next day, she returned to the diner. She needed answers. The old man was still there, seated at the same corner booth. His eyes met hers, and he looked like he'd been expecting her. "You went in, didn't you?" he rasped, voice low. Catherine nodded. "Who is he?" The man sipped his coffee, then set it down with a trembling hand. His name was Elijah Crane. He wasn't always a monster. He was a prodigy, a gifted child. Spoke 5 languages before he was 10. But something snapped in him. They said he saw things, heard voices. One day, he locked his parents in the basement, lit the house on fire and watched it burn. Catherine swallowed hard. They brought him to the asylum, said he needed help. But the doctors, his voice cracked. They made him worse. They tested drugs on him. Locked him in solitary for weeks. No light, no food, no sound. Just him and his mind. What happened when the asylum closed? She asked. No one knows. They said he died. Others said he disappeared. But I worked there once. Cleaned rooms. I saw him after they shut the place down. He was still there. Watching. Waiting. Why didn't anyone get him out? Because no one wanted to face him. That night, Catherine made her decision. She couldn't walk away. She'd always believed that monsters deserved to have their stories told too. But she needed her camera back. And part of her needed to know if Elijah was still human, or something else entirely. She packed again. This time she brought more. Backup lights, a new camera, a crowbar. She returned to the asylum just after sunset. The gate stood open, almost inviting. The asylum loomed in the dark, patient and quiet. She stepped inside. Something had changed. The air was heavier, as if it recognized her. The floor creaked beneath her, and every step echoed like a warning. In the lobby, her camera sat on the floor, untouched, facing the entrance. She approached it cautiously, picked it up and checked the screen. There were new recordings. Heart racing, she hit play. The footage showed her, sleeping in the motel room, curled up by the door. Then it showed the old man at the diner, sitting alone, silently mouthing words into the air. Then a final clip. A room deep inside the asylum, lit by dozens of candles. The bed in the center, and standing beside it, Elijah, smiling. The words whispered through the speaker. Come see. Come understand. Catherine swallowed her fear and followed the clues. She descended through the asylum again, past the children's wing, past the shattered windows, into the heart of the building. The air was colder than before. The hallways looked different again, shifting like a dream. But she wasn't lost this time. She was being led. Eventually, she found the room from the recording. It was real. Dozens of candles lit the space, casting flickering shadows across the peeling walls. In the center was the bed, clean now. White sheets. On the wall behind it, drawn in charcoal, was a massive mural. A twisted tree, its branches like veins stretching out across the room. Hanging from those branches were dolls, human-like, featureless. And on the far side of the room, Elijah stood. He didn't move. Catherine stepped inside slowly, the camera rolling. You wanted me to come back, she said, trying to steady her voice. He tilted his head. You don't have to hide anymore. People deserve to know what they did to you. He chuckled softly, a sound that didn't belong in the throat of a man. I never hid. They just stopped looking. His voice was clearer now, no longer raspy, but smooth, almost melodic. His eyes, though shadowed, glowed faintly in the candlelight. They called me a psycho, he whispered. They locked me away, told me I was sick. But they were the ones who couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't understand. Understand what? She asked. He raised a hand, gesturing to the mural. They showed me. Voices. The ones beneath the floor. The ones behind the walls. They told me what would come. And now you're part of it. Catherine's fingers tightened around the camera. You're not just trying to scare people, she said. You want someone to carry your story. You're a madness. He stepped closer slowly. I want someone to see the truth. He took a step back. That you're not a monster. He smiled wider. No. That you are. The lights went out. Darkness consumed the room. Her flashlight flicked on. Elijah was gone. The mural on the wall had changed. Now it showed her. A stick figure woman standing under the tree. Surrounded by the dolls. All of them, with cameras for heads. She spun around, panicked. Behind her a voice whispered. You came to tell my story. But now you are the story. The floor cracked beneath her feet. She fell into blackness, screaming. She landed hard deep underground. A tunnel stretched before her, damp and narrow. The walls pulsed like flesh. And voices whispered in the darkness. She crawled forward, breath ragged. The tunnel led to another room, a hidden ward. Inside were dozens of beds, filled with unmoving bodies. Faces covered. Machines long dead. On each chest a number. 102, 103, 104. All patients. All forgotten. And in the center of the room, a mirror. She stepped forward, trembling. The mirror didn't show her reflection. It showed Elijah standing behind her. And in the mirror's world, he lifted a hand and placed it gently on her shoulder. He turned. No one was there, but she felt it. His hand. Cold. Real. She screamed, swung the flashlight, and shattered the mirror. Silence. The bodies in the beds twitched. Ran. The stairs. Through the halls. Past the murals. The asylum was alive again. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and doors slammed open and shut. And always his laughter, echoing, following her. She reached the exit, pushed the door open and stopped. Outside wasn't the town. It was the asylum. Again. The same hallway. The same broken wheelchair. She had never left. She dropped the camera. Fell to her knees. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." The walls began to bleed. The tiles cracked open, revealing eyes beneath them, watching, blinking. Then from the ceiling Elijah descended, arms stretched like wings, head twisted to the side. "You wanted a story," he whispered. "Now live in it." The floor opened beneath her again. Fell. And everything went black. Days later, the townspeople found her car, still parked at the motel. Her room undisturbed. Her bags unpacked. But Catherine was gone. No one ever saw her again. Months passed. And then one night the asylum gate creaked open. A tourist wandered inside. She carried a flashlight, a camera, and a curious smile. As she stepped into the darkness, the wind whispered two words through the trees. "She's home."